The Central Valley is home to many peoples and cultures. At the beginning of time, it was home to many native tribes, one of them being my tribe, the Tachi Indians. The Tachi people originated around the foothills of the San Joaquin Central Valley and migrated alongside the change of seasons. We lived in peace and tranquility. We were hunters and gatherers. We respected Mother Earth and her offerings. But as time passed and colonizers entered the valley, we were hunted and expelled from our land. When miners and farmers settled in the area, our tribe was forcibly relocated to Kalinga in modern-day Fresno County. Hey, Sonica, do you want to hear a story?
Sure, of course.
All right, let me tell you a story about our Yokuts. So our Yokuts are actually from this area. This is our Dumluis. We had lived here and took care of the land, this beautiful land, for centuries. After we had settled here, we were pushed out actually, and I had been moved to Kalinga. We were colonized, and while we were pushed out, we had to leave our homelands and our life, our everything.
And then what happened?
Well, while in Kalinga, we were there for a few years. Well, over there, we had noticed we had a great life, but then the people who lived there, the Melagani Yokuts, had found black oil.
Oh, wow.
So when we were pushed out of our land from there, we actually had been pushed down to the Santa Rosa area, the Santa Rosa Rancheria right there in Lemoore. We had to live there for many years as well.
And what about the boarding schools?
Well, as time went on, our children were assimilated into to the white culture or the white life. They had put them in the schools, and they had taken away their culture, their language, everything, and make them cut their hair. They were really losing their culture.
And what else?
Well, as we were moved down to Santa Rosa Rancheria and Lemoore, we had basically lived in poverty. We didn't have the best way of life. We lived in huts and cars. It wasn't that great.
And we also had to watch the lake be drained for agriculture usage.
Yeah, our beautiful Pa'ashi, our lake was gone. That lake was very huge. It was one of the biggest lakes west of the Mississippi. It was our life source. We had food, water, everything was there. It was drained for agriculture usage, and we had to, while living in the Rancheria in 1921 to 1934, when the reservation was established, we had to start a new way of life.
But they couldn't stop us from keeping the language and culture alive, though.
No, it didn't stop us. We actually had become really strong people and kept continuing with our language and culture.
And now we share this land with many different people and many different cultures.
Yes, that is correct. This land has witnessed many stories and so many struggles. We are strong and resilient. We keep going.
I was born in Mexico, but I currently live in America. I was brought here by my parents. My pa left for America when I was 8. He left with my ma, with us and 5 children in total, and told us, "Me voy a América a ganar dinero para traerlos a todos aquí." While he was gone, he had to survive with little money that he earned and the money he mailed us. Ma sold trasmayo de pesca, and I'd help bring money by picking lemons at a farm. Our everyday meal were beans and tortillas. That's all we could afford, and the meat was out of our budget. Until my pa sent us a letter with money and said, "You have enough money to come now, and I can't wait to see you." After we read the letter, my family and I packed to get ready for a 2-day trip to America. To get here, we all had to walk all night through the desert. It was dark. It was hard to see any of the cactus hitting my legs. God, I was so tired of walking, and everyone was crying for water. We also couldn't see any of the animals who lived in the desert. Some were poisonous. Some people didn't finish the trip. Close to sunrise, we finally met up with the people with cars. One guy approached us and asked my mom for dinero. I remember thinking, is she giving him so much money? She later explained to me that each of us cost $300 to cross. I crossed the border when I was 12, when everything was cheaper back then. Later, they put me in a trunk with my siblings and told me, "No one makes a single noise until I open the trunk." It was so cramped and difficult to move. We could feel the car moving by how bumpy everything got. I don't remember how long we were there, but at some point the car stopped. We heard talking from the man and someone else. We were scared for the worst. My heart was beating really fast, but the car started to move again, and I was still scared to speak. But after a while of driving, the trunk opened. I smiled in relief to see my mom and the man. We got out to get in a huge trailer truck with other families. We then traveled to LA. They served us my first American meal, a hot dog. I hated it.
I was born in the Bay Area. To broke parents that had to hustle every day to keep bills paid and mouths fed. I'd never known any way other than just enough for tomorrow, but we were surviving. And to continue to survive, we'd have to move from violence, from cages, from the fear that each day could be the last. So we did, and we never stopped. My parents split, but they never planted roots. Consequently, I'd be bouncing around, rootless, until I landed in the Central Valley. Here in the Central Valley is where I began finding myself and my place in the world. The school system did its best to throw me around and push me out. The lack of resources and POC guidance left me dizzy, and money was tight. And I, like many other of my black and brown peers, had a difficult time finding employment. On the surface, this was not our world. We did not belong here, but we were here, getting rejected from work, getting booted from schools, being targeted by police on the streets, hungry, tired, and ill-equipped, and years went by like this. The struggle to exist bound me and my friends together, and my story was a common one. My friends hardly spoke the same language as me, but we'd find ourselves shoulder to shoulder, hauling melons at the remate for cash. Circles like these helped ground me. I found my shade from the harsh valley heat in my community. It took a lot of learning to make the most of what little we had. I learned the neighborhoods, the subcultures within them, bus routes and shortcuts. I learned who would pay for a strong back or a steady hand for a few hours. I picked up chunks of strange languages. I learned the stories of my friends, where they'd come from, where I'd come from. This is how I found myself. This is how my roots took hold. I'd locked myself into the Central Valley soil and began to bloom and sow my own seeds here.
I think society is unfair because essential workers are getting paid minimum wage to put themselves in danger every single day to keep our society fed and running. But if something were to happen to a worker, they could be replaced the next day. I took this picture when I was on my way to break. Here we can see what conditions the people who pack the fruit work under. There were days in which there was a person in each spot, but as times passed, less people started showing up. When I look at this picture, I realize society was unfair because of the conditions essential workers worked under. During the pandemic, we were supposed to stay 6 feet apart, but how can you stay 6 feet apart when there isn't enough space? And even if there was enough space in between each worker, they're overworked to keep up with the fruit. Even though there are plastic windows in between them, I still feel like that isn't enough to protect them. It's unfair that multi-million-dollar companies can't pay their workers a livable wage without them having to work their life away. I think it's unfair that our capitalist society has conditioned us to believe that it's okay to constantly be overworked and work overtime in order to earn enough money to survive. This picture was taken after the day was done. Every day when the people packing the fruit leave, my co-workers and I move the machines and clean under it to take out all of the fruit that fell to the floor. We put the fruit in the conveyor belt where it is taken away. This was heavy day, so a lot of fruit fell. But there are other days where not as much fruit falls. I'm not sure where this fruit goes. Some people say they throw this fruit away. Others say they use it to make juice. I'm not sure which one is true, but after looking at this picture, I realized society is unfair because of the way we brush off how much food we waste. There are homeless people who have nothing to eat, and I find it unfair how there are companies who don't take that into consideration, who waste a lot of food products and would rather throw food away than to give it to someone in need.
In LA, we met with a friend of Apa's, who then drove us to Parlier, where my Apa's house was. I was so excited to see my Apa. We all ran to him with a big hug. After that, I grew up in my first American house in Parlier, and later moved to Fresno, where I raised my family and live my life now.
Abuela, can we talk?
Sí, mija, ¿qué tienes en mente?
I wake up every morning at 5 a.m., just like my mom. And she gets up early to make lunch for her and Abba every day because they have a long day ahead of them.
You know, the woman in Arriba Valle Central said it was going to be a record high this week. The 3 digits, they said.
I wonder why Amma and Abba have to work so hard.
You know, a lawyer works inside all day. Y míralos, they have a nice homes, they have nice cars, and they're even are home when their kids get home from school.
Exactly. My parents had to travel for weeks by foot to get here and work day and night. Yet, we don't have nice cars or a nice home, and they're never home by the time I get home from school. It's not that they don't work hard enough. If they work harder than they already do, they would never be home again. I mean, will they ever be there for my games? Will they be there for my award ceremonies? And to my parent-teacher conference? If they work even harder, then they won't be able to do anything. I can't imagine what else they are going to miss out if they work harder.
You know, a lot of good also comes from your parents working hard, mija.
Of course, Abuela. I am very grateful for them. I just think the system is not fair. Have I told you about my best friends, Bao and Chloe?
See, what about them?
Well, we're not like most friend groups at my high school because we're all from different backgrounds. Bao is Hmong, and she says her family had to flee their homeland because of something called the Secret War. She tells me her family doesn't like to talk about those times. I don't understand why.
You know, maybe it was very painful and they don't want her to think about it.
But the thing is, my parents love to talk about the story of how they crossed the famous La Frontera.
Yes, it's resilience, mija. We are resilient people.
And my friend Chloe, she came here from Oakland. Her family had to move here because her parents could not afford the rent in the Bay Area because it was less expensive here.
Well, if they hadn't moved here, you wouldn't have met them, right?
I guess my point is, when we walk to school all the times in the neighborhood, all the homes look run down. The sidewalks are uneven, and some places don't even have a sidewalk. And our parks are not kept up. How can it be less expensive to live here, yet all our parents have to work hard to struggle to put food on the table, clothes on our backs, and a roof over our head?
It's a hard world we live in, mija. That's why you have to go to school, keep your head up high, and work hard to get a little something for yourself and your family.
But for what? The cycle only makes the rich guys richer and we stay in the same place, only working more and more hours for the same minimum wage. Abuela, this is not just something happening in my friend's house. I think many people in the Central Valley are living this reality, and it doesn't sit well with me. But I'm only 14. I can't vote. My parents can't vote. My siblings can't even vote. What can I do?
Mija, there's a lot you could do without being an adult or voting. There are many ways to create change no matter what your age is. You know, that's a hard lesson I had to learn as a young one. I was told to be quiet and be silent and not even have a voice of my own. Never had that opportunity. But you, mija, you have the drive and the energy, this perspective that is worth paying attention to. You're seeing the world from your perspective, and you can see through things that are invisible to most people. You know, the sistemas de poder, you can see through them. You have observed that many see them as normal. But you know what? It's not normal to be poor. It's not normal to have to leave your homeland because of violence and poverty. It's not normal to come to a country and be so alienated that you're afraid to be who you are or who you want to become, that it leaves you so numb. But you know what? It's our duty to wake up and lead with example for those who have suffered the consequences of these sistemas de poder. It's our duty, mija, to speak up when we see something that is wrong. We can't ignore these things, and they have to be addressed. So what are you going to do, mija, to create a better tomorrow? A better tomorrow, not just for you, but for everyone around you.
My quince is coming up soon, and I know a lot of people are going to be there, especially family from out of town and out of state. Maybe I can use this opportunity to talk about this stuff? I know that quinces are usually filled with beer, food, and dancing, but maybe my quince can be different. A quince with food and dancing, but instead of beer, we can have pláticas, conversations sobre our current reality. We could talk about issues me and my friends are worried about and see if together we can all make a better tomorrow for us and by us. What you think, abuela?
Of course I'll help you, mija. That's a fantastic idea. I'm there for you. Tú ya sabes.